Book 2, Chapter 1, Many Meetings. So, in this video, in this chapter, we start off with Frodo waking up in Rivendell a few days later, and Gandalf is there, and Gandalf explains to him that he bore this wound for 17 days, and that Elrond was, healed him, but there was a little piece of the blade still in him. And the night before, Elrond was finally able to remove it. And of course, Gandalf explains to him that he would have become a ring wraith, but he'd be under their power, and he'd be taken back to Mordor and tortured. And Frodo's like, he then tells Frodo that, because Frodo asks where he's been, and he said, well, I was delayed, and that's all I'm going to say for now. But I've already mentioned, and if you've seen the movies, you already know that what happened. He does refer to the chief of the Ringwraiths as the Morgul Lord. Of course, earlier, Frodo again was stabbed by a Morgul blade because it came from Minas Morgul. The Witch King is the Lord of Minas Morgul. Minas Morgul used to be Minas Ithil, the Tower of the Moon, but over 1,000 years before, the Ringwraiths had taken that over. And so now the city is rotting and decaying, and nobody goes there except for the last king of Gondor did, and he was never seen again. Gandalf explains to him, what happened at the ford. Talks about the race of the kings from over the sea is nearly at an end. Aragorn being the last descendant of the kings of Numenor. There's not very many people of Numenor or Dunedain, men of the West, that are left. The few that are in the north, of course, Aragorn is their chief, and they are, of course, known as the Rangers, and he has to explain that to Frodo. That's who the Rangers are, because, Frodo's like, I thought he was only a ranger. Well, yeah. He is. And so, Frodo's kind of a little shocked that Aragorn's a descendant of the kings, but he is. Of course, the men of the south in Gondor, those Dunedain, became mingled with lesser men, so you don't see very many of these people left in Middle-earth, and so this will be their last adventure. And he does say that, Sauron has other servants. He mentions that. Obviously, so he tells me, he's got orcs and trolls, which those are his main troops. There's men, evil men, that, the men of Rhûn and Harad worship him, basically, and they serve him. Many, they only fight for him out of fear. I don't think the majority of the people would probably be like, oh yeah, Sauron's the greatest, It's mostly just their leaders, and it's like that in reality. Like, we just had this war between Iran and Israel. You can't really blame the people of these countries for the things that go on, but you can blame their government, because the government that's evil, and they worship Satan, and Sauron here is kind of a stand-in for Satan. He does mention werewolves, and if you remember from the Silmarillion, Sauron was the Lord of Wolves, or werewolves. And he mentions that the bright light that he saw was Glorfindel. He saw him as he is. The elves, of course, it says that they can live in both worlds, the seen and the unseen, and they have great power. Mentions that Glorfindel is of a house of princes. Again, like I said in the last video, from Gondolin. He's one of the lords of Gondolin, and he died saving the exiles who were fleeing by killing a Balrog, and he fell into an abyss, just like another event that's going to happen in this book here soon. But anyway, Frodo goes back to sleep, wakes up. He's reunited with Sam. Sam takes him to the other, so everyone's reunited, right? And there's a feast, and here for the first time he sees Arwen, and we see Arwen for the first time. And it is said that she looks like Luthien Tinuviel. She is the what does it say? Great granddaughter of Luthien. Aragorn, of course, is also descended from Luthien, but as you remember from the Silmarillion, the half-elves were allowed to choose which kindred they were going to belong to. And Elros, Elrond's brother, chose to be men. He became the first king of Numenor, and so all mortal men are descended from Elros. All the Numenorians, anyway, who are mortal men. And we do get a mention that she has two brothers, and they are twins, Elladan and Elrohir. But they're not there at this point. They're basically looking for any signs of the ring wraiths. And we find out later that they find no signs. They've returned to Mordor. And it does say that their mother had been tormented by orcs, and they had rescued her. And of course, even though she was brought back to Rivendell and Elrond healed her, she did not want to continue to live in Middle-earth, and so she went to the Grey Havens, and she's gone. And so at the end, when Elrond takes ship, you can imagine that he's going to be reunited with his wife when he gets there. And of course, Frodo sees Gloin the Dwarf from The Hobbit, who's old now. And he's wondering what he's doing there. And he's like, well, I'm been made to come here to see what happened to Balin, Ori, and Oyen. They've been missing. It says here in the companion about the dwarves that Tolkien had said, he was talking about a BBC radio adaptation of The Fellowship of the Ring, and he says, I thought that Gloin in the broadcast was not too bad, if a bit exaggerated. I do think of the dwarves like Jews, at once native and alien in their habitations, speaking the languages of the country with an accent due to their own private tongue. Some people have compared the dwarves and the Jews together and think, oh, well, the dwarves are greedy, Jews are greedy, and, you know, the whole racist trope about the Jews. It's like, yeah, it's... Tolkien thought highly of them. I only think of them as just like all the other races of humans, and we're no different from one another, and there's good, there's bad, hey. We're mortals, we're not perfect. Never going to be. So I always thought that was interesting, how he kind of based them in a way off of them. But in a good way, again. And he does mention that Bombur is like really fat now, which is funny. And of course he's reunited with Bilbo. And they talk for a little bit. Bilbo, of course, asks to see the ring, but is quickly like, yeah, put it away. My time with the ring is past. And so, of course, Aragorn reappears, and Bilbo calls him Dunedain, and this kind of confuses Frodo. But he's like, you should at least know enough Elvish to know that Dunedain means Man of the West, or Numenorian. And so we are now learning more about Aragorn and his ancestry. You get even more in the next chapter. But Bilbo and Aragorn go off to sing a song about Arendelle. Now, the song about Arendelle has a lot of references to Silmarillion. Now, there's several different versions of this poem. The original is called Errantry, and has nothing to do with the Silmarillion. Arendelle's not named. But for this book, he decided to rewrite it and put him in there. And the original version is in The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, where those poems are presented as poems that hobbits wrote. So this is, here in the Fellowship of the Ring, this poem is based off of a poem that the hobbits wrote, but Bilbo's basically redoing the poem, redoing the song with Aragorn. And it mentions a green jewel, and Bilbo's like, yeah, Aragorn seemed to think that was important. And it is, because I do believe that is a reference to the Elendilmere, which I have mentioned before. So I'm not going to go through all the references to the Silmarillion. I'm not going to go read the poem. Maybe at some point I will do that as a separate video. This is pretty cool to analyze stuff. And then Bilbo and Frodo decide they want to go off quietly and talk somewhere, and as they're leaving, they hear Arwen sing a song about, or sing a hymn to Elbereth, which is in Elvish. And finally, you see Aragorn and Arwen together. It says, near him sat the Lady Arwen. To his surprise, Frodo saw that Aragorn stood beside her. His dark cloak was thrown back, and he seemed to be clad in elven mail, and a star shone on his breast. And so, the reader, Frodo, we all get to see Aragorn for the first time as this royal, as royalty, because he is. He is king in exile. And so, basically the chapter ends here. And I will have to finally mention that, and I've probably mentioned it before, I think I have, that the elves call out to Elbereth, and they venerate her just like the Catholics do, the Virgin Mary. And Tolkien being a Catholic, obviously that was a big part of his life. He continued to be a Catholic throughout his life in honor to his mother, who had died when he was young. He felt that she had been persecuted by her family for becoming Catholic, and that killed her, and so he looked at her as a martyr. And so you put that and the whole Catholic thing with Mary, put that together, and so you get Elbereth, the Queen of the Stars, or Mary's Queen of Heaven. And so and there you have it. So you do see little glimpses here throughout this book of some kind of religion. But Tolkien did try to avoid religion. He didn't want it just to be too religious. I don't think the book would have appealed to as many people as it has if it was super religious. It's obviously there. You can't help, as a writer, putting your life, your thoughts and feelings into what you write. So religion's going to be a big part of that. Like let's say if a Muslim writes a fantasy book, he's going to want to put Islam in there, right? Or a Jew writes a fantasy book, they're going to want to put the Jewish religion in there. An atheist is going to probably want to put atheism in there. It's a big part of your life. It's going to be there. Things that have happened to you, things you've done. And so clearly you see that here in Lord of the Rings. But anyway, this video has run on long enough. So that's the end of that one. And so hopefully you all enjoy this video, as I have enjoyed bringing it to you. And I'll be back when I'm back with the next one, which the next chapter is the Council of Elrond, which is a pretty big chapter, and I'm probably going to have to do a few videos on that, because one video is going to already be like probably half an hour, and this is like almost 15 minutes, so I better end it. Anyway, so I will see you all later.